Good morning, Isaac. Good to be with
Morning.
you this morning. Hey, you're right here with me. What's up with that? This is great to have you with you. I got my my coffee cup here from Hawaii. It's one of my special cups, and you have got the standard white cup today.
My coffee cup is from right down the road,
Yeah,
actually.
exactly.
Yeah.
From the Open Road
Traveling
Cafe.
on the road again this week.
That's right. Well, good to have you here with us, and we're looking forward to thinking about boats again today. Jesus is in the boat with the disciples. He's just calmed the storm at the end of Mark chapter 4 that we looked at a couple of weeks ago. And now he is ready to get out of the boat. So in Mark chapter 5, it says they came to the other side of the sea, to the country of the Gerasenes. And when Jesus stepped out of the boat, immediately there met him out of the tombs a man with an unclean spirit. And then you know the story of what we know as the Gadarene demoniac and how Jesus delivered him. He described himself, "My name is Legion, for we are many." He had many demons in him. Jesus cast the demons out into a herd of pigs that then ran into the sea. Quite a dramatic moment there. And then the people didn't know how to handle the miracle. And so they asked Jesus to leave. And down in verse 17, they began to beg Jesus to depart from the region. And as he was getting into the boat, the man who had been possessed with demons begged him that he might be with him. So here was a season of ministry. Jesus got out of the boat to bring healing to this man in a miraculous fashion. And then the people begged Jesus to leave. And being a perfect gentleman, he got in the boat to depart. And so what do we learn about ministry? There's a time to get out of the boat, time to get back in the boat.
Yeah, so kind of a behind the scenes of Woods in the Word getting coffee. Normally we film these before you deliver your sermon.
Right.
We are down in North Carolina with you this week, so we heard this sermon yesterday.
Right.
Um, and it was funny because Samuel, my oldest, who's 10, was listening to you preach the sermon, and you got to the part where Jesus sends the demons into the pigs, and they go over the cliff into the ocean. And that was the first time he'd heard that, and he audibly laughed out loud at that part of the
He's
story.
picturing that.
Yeah, in the middle of the sermon. So I'm reminded of that as we walk through that. You skipped over that part to keep me from laughing this morning. But yeah, we talk about learning lessons from Jesus in boats, and I think the metaphor, the analogy, whatever, is that the boat symbolizes our life, right? That we
Right.
live.
Yes.
We live with Jesus in the boat. Sometimes it feels like he's not in the boat, which we learned about last week. But that there are these times where we have to kind of step outside ourselves and go engage with the people around us.
Yeah.
That Jesus doesn't call us just to live our life floating on a boat with him.
Right.
But that life is lived outside of the boat oftentimes, which will tee up another opportunity to get out of the boat later. But in this case, Jesus had a mission. And so it's the seasons of life that we go through that Jesus calls us. And so I think there's lessons here to learn from Jesus himself. Because the disciples don't get mentioned.
They're not even mentioned in
at
the
all
story.
here.
They're just watching
Yeah.
Jesus take control of the situation, heal this man, exorcise these demons, and then commission this man to be his missionary, because the guy wants to get in the boat with Jesus and spend his time with Jesus like the disciples get to do. But Jesus has a different assignment for him.
But this passage is bookended by, it starts with Jesus stepping out of the boat.
Right.
And then wraps up, for our purposes, him stepping back into the boat.
Right.
And so it's the season of life, the season of ministry, that there's times for that to start and times for that to end.
Right. And this all began really in Mark chapter 4, verse 1, when Jesus said, "Let us get in the boat and go to the other side." Jesus, knowing what he was going to do, had an appointment with this demoniac, and he's going to arrive on the other shore at just the right time to heal this man and deliver him from his demons. In the meantime, he's going to teach the disciples that I'm the Lord of the journey and the destination, which we talked about a couple of weeks ago. They're going to ride through this storm, and Jesus is going to calm that storm so that they can be delivered to the mission that is important to him. There's one guy that he wants to bring into the kingdom, and then commissioned to be a missionary. And he's going to keep that appointment. Jesus keeps his appointments. He's never late, always on time. And when he arrives, it's time to get out of the boat and serve people and make a difference for the kingdom.
Well, it's a good call out that it's important to take these stories in context and to kind of stack them together, because that's how the disciples lived them, was together, right? That they just got out of a boat, or Jesus is stepping out of a boat that was in a stormy sea, that he had to just calm the seas. And so they just experience that, and then they go and he calms a man.
Yeah, exactly.
With a similar snap of the finger. Right. So they're learning about Jesus, but that's what our life is about. As we learning live this about out, Jesus, is learning about Jesus, learning who he is, and the stories of our life, and the interactions that we go through, and the decisions that we make, the times that we step out of our own boat. It's all about learning about Jesus. That they moved from teacher to who is this one that controls the seas,
right? And
then they go into, now this man, he tells demons where to go.
Right.
And so they're continuing to learn about Jesus. And that's what we never in our life, we will not fully understand Jesus.
And we will never stop learning from him. And it's so instructive that he awoke back at the end of chapter 4. He awoke, rebuked the wind, and said to the sea, "Peace, be still." And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. Jesus brings calm into our situation. And then here in verse 15, and they came to Jesus and saw the demon-possessed man, the one who had the legion, sitting there clothed and in his right mind, and they were afraid. They came back to see this demon-possessed man sitting at the feet of Jesus, peaceful, at calm. I hadn't really made the calm connection here between the sea and the man. Jesus brings calm anytime he steps into a situation, and we're always learning that, because we need to be calmed in our lives.
Yes. Yeah, and that whether it's the circumstances around us, like the sea, that he can bring peace to us within those circumstances, sometimes by calming the circumstances, and sometimes by calming us in the circumstances, as we learned about last week. But then other times it's not our circumstances that are at war with God, it's us.
Right. We're in turmoil
or people in our lives as well. But that he has the same power to bring peace to our inner selves as he does to our circumstances.
Right. And so he completely sets this guy free and delivers him from the demons. The story is really not about the demons. The story is not about the pigs that ran over the cliff, as amazing as that was for Samuel to experience. But it's about this guy and the impact that he's going to have, having been delivered from his demons. He now has a testimony. I met Jesus. I've never been the same. He delivered me from my demons. And as much as everything within him, he wanted to stay close to Jesus the rest of his life. Jesus commissions him at the end of the story in verse 19. He did not permit him to get in the boat. It wasn't time for him to get in the boat. Instead, Jesus said, "Go home to your friends and tell them how much the Lord has done for you and how he has had mercy on you." And he went away and began to proclaim in the Decapolis how much Jesus had done for him, and everyone marveled. Everyone marveled at the story of this man who had obviously been changed. They knew him as the maniac who was running around naked and living in the tombs and cutting himself with stones. He was destroying himself, bent on destruction, because that's what demons do. They destroy. And now he's been delivered, and Jesus sends him, go tell your friends, go tell your cities, because he lives in the Decapolis, which is this collection of 10 cities. And so he has an incredible impact as one man that Jesus went across the sea to deliver. And now he's telling everybody how Jesus changed his life, such that a couple of pages over in your Bible, as Jesus returns to the Decapolis, they don't beg him to leave this time. They beg him to stay. And so in chapter 7, in verse 31, then he returned from the region of Tyre and went through Sidon to the Sea of Galilee in the region of the Decapolis. So he's back now where this guy has been sharing. And they brought to him a man who was deaf and had a speech impediment, and they begged him to lay his hands on him. Now they're bringing people to Jesus to be healed. Last time he did that, they couldn't handle it. They said, get out of here. And so it's amazing how their perspective has been changed through the testimony of this one man who was healed by Jesus.
But it's all a part of this story. And so if you view it from the disciples' perspective, right, go back to when they were on the shore and Jesus said, we're going across there. There's this mission. And so oftentimes in our lives, like, we'll know that we're going somewhere, that we have a destination across the sea. But then there's so much learning to be done.
Yes.
And you mentioned he's the Lord of the destination and the journey. And so even if you know the direction you're going and you know where you're going, it's not hold your breath till you get there. It's you're learning along the way and you're being prepared along the way. And so it's, God was preparing the disciples by sending them through that storm and showing them the power of Jesus.
Right.
In that time, God was preparing this man to receive Jesus.
Yes.
And then he was preparing that area for that man then to go in effect for him.
Right.
All because the disciples were obedient to Jesus and got in the boat and started across the sea. They hadn't learned anything at that point, but none of that learning happens if you don't get in the boat and head across the sea. And so it's just that God's sending us in a direction, but along that way, he's impacting us, he's teaching us, but then he's also using what we learn and the impact we have on other people to then magnify his work beyond. This is a guy that encountered Jesus.
Right.
And then these 10 cities were changed forever because of that work. And so it's God's always working through us. He's working in us. At the same time, like he's teaching us things, and then the people that we encounter, they go out and they impact folks as well. Whereas those people that live in the Decapolis that heard this man's story of how Jesus changed his life, they were there because of Jesus calming the storm for the disciples.
Right.
And the disciples were able there then to respectfully stand back. If they hadn't learned the lesson about Jesus and who he was, and if they still had him as just a teacher, maybe they're more active. Maybe they're trying to.
Let me help you, Jesus.
No, let's let Jesus do this. He just calmed that storm. Let's see what he's got for this man.
Well, and it's so instructive to realize that in chapter 7, as they're not bringing this deaf and mute man to the formerly demoniac to heal.
Right.
They're bringing him to Jesus because he's done such a good job of representing Jesus that they understand it's not about him, it's about Jesus. Jesus is the one that heals. Jesus is the one who delivered this man. Jesus is here. Let's bring our buddy to Jesus and watch what happens.
And then the other message for us too is this idea of transition and the season of ministry.
Yes.
That Jesus got out of the boat, purposeful, accomplished what he was there for, which was that man, commissions him on his way back into the boat. The people there that not received, Jesus left.
They weren't ready for Jesus, but they would listen to a changed life. And so Jesus left, took the disciples who were there to watch all that happen. And they probably just assumed we got to make room in the boat for this guy. Gee, we've come over here to get this guy and he's going to be one of us now. But then when they see Jesus commission him, but none of them, he didn't say, okay, Peter, you stay with this guy because you know your stuff now. You've been with me. You go with him. No, he sent this guy by himself. Usually whenever he sends them out, he sends them out 2 by 2. So it's really interesting.
When he does that in the next chapter.
In the next chapter, they're going to be ready now to go out. They've seen how this works and they understand. And he gives them that same authority that they watched him use with those demons. So they know they're going in that authority and they go out to have impact.
But Jesus did this often where he went from town to town and he didn't, in the way we think, he didn't maybe finish the job at certain spots.
He left it for the people.
But he was always following following his father, following God. God was
Right.
telling him to come and to go. And we should be the same. That when Jesus says go, that no matter what we're going from or where we've been, that we're obedient to go, because he's got plans for us in other places. And maybe it's not always to sit in the same ministry for 50 or 100 years.
You can get comfortable in the boat.
Some people, maybe that's your calling. But it's important for us to stay plugged in to Jesus, plugged into God's will in our life by consistently spending time with him, so that when he says get back in the boat, or when he says let's go across the sea, that we're able to be faithful to do that and not get stuck staying in the Decapolis and saying, yeah, they don't want us here, but let's force it. Let's tell. We didn't tell the story right, or let's go tell it here. Let's make it so that they'll come. Let's be more friendly to what they want.
Right. Yeah.
We look more like stay here and let's build a church here that works for these people. Let's make it. Right. Jesus said, no, I'm gonna take my message somewhere else. But someone was left there.
He left a witness. He always leaves a witness. And yes, and then that was preparing the way for his return. And everything we do now is preparing for his return.
But when we try to make those plans ourselves, we screwed up.
No, and that's why we need the book to keep us on track and to keep guiding us so that we can follow the example of Jesus. There's a right time to get out of the boat and a right time to get back in the boat. And you're not going to know that unless you're walking very closely with him, listening to his guidance and following his instruction.
And it's going to prepare you for a life that makes impact.
Right. And you have no idea how many lives will be changed because you kept following Jesus.
Right.
Yeah. We have a lot to look forward to. So friends, get ready. It might be time to get out of the boat and serve someone. And then Jesus will show you exactly the right time to get back in the boat and go on to the next opportunity.
Next opportunity. I like that.
Yeah.
Life is it's full of opportunities.
We go from one opportunity to
opportunities to experience him, and it's going to be different. He operates in different, unique ways. We looked at a bunch of different ways that you can experience Jesus in a boat in your life.
Right.
But they're all opportunities to experience him, to learn about him, to grow closer to him. That whatever season you're in right now, what are you learning about Jesus? What's he teaching you about himself? What's he teaching you about yourself? Those are two areas of your life that you should always be learning in. Learning about Jesus, learning about God, and then learning about yourself and how those two interact.
And then the third question is, who does he want me to tell that to? How does he want me to share that story with a world that is desperately needing to hear that Jesus makes a difference? So just go do that. And that'll be wonderful. Good. And we'll see you again next time.
Looking forward to it.
All right. Bye-bye.